Hello? Yes. Can you all hear me? Great. Thanks for joining us today. Full house, which is great. Just as a matter of interest, how many of you are already practicing knowledge management in your company? A lot. And how many are using SharePoint for it? How many people have just come to find out about our take on knowledge management? I see. And how many people have just realized they've walked into the wrong room? Okay, I'm Victor Poznanski.
And I'm Christopher Kaler.
And we're going to be talking about the new knowledge management portal in Office 365. The other day, I was looking for some details about how we log user engagement in Office. And I went to Enterprise Search. There wasn't a good best bet for it. And I found a bunch of good-looking team sites. And I was pretty sure which team was responsible, and I went to the team site, and I saw something like you can see on the right here. A bunch of files. And I started looking through them to see if I could find the right information. Some of them looked pretty good, and others were just works in progress. If only I could have had some guidance on which was the right document. Has anybody else had a problem like that in their company? Yeah? A few of you? Good. That's the problem we're trying to help you out with today. Office 365 is really great for acquiring data, like spreadsheets and videos and PowerPoints. But the result is often you have an awful lot of undifferentiated data, and you don't quite know what to do with it. And it sits in your silos like team sites, in Mail, in OneDrive, and group folders. Wouldn't it be great if we could just polish out the gems and make sure that those ones are the things that people can find, the ones that you really need to describe properly? We call that definitive information. And that's the idea of what we're calling Codename Infopedia. It's our vision for ready-to-go curation, browsing, finding, and communication of definitive knowledge across your organizations. Just imagine if everyone had a beautiful, easy way of showcasing and sharing their most important company knowledge. That it was mobile, it was fast, social, and powered by the Office Graph and Analytics, so that it helped you along as you did your job. There was one place to find definitive answers to all your questions, to explore and stay up to date on your critical business topics. And it was inclusive. Anybody could contribute, and it worked well from the get-go, but it became even better when organized for your business with the right stewardship. That's the purpose of the Codename Infopedia ready-to-go knowledge management portal. I say knowledge management. Everybody has their own definition of what it's about, so let me just quickly say what our take is on it. Here are two definitions that you often see. One of them is making your information more actionable. And another one is getting the right information to the right people at the right time. But I often think it's good to talk about the verbs you'd use to do those things. So, making your information actionable, I think the most primary thing is to be able to collect it together in one place. And that's what a lot of we're going to be talking about today. And then there's also relating it to other information, explaining why it's there and what to do with it, highlighting the most important aspects, and organizing it conceptually so people can get their heads around it. In terms of getting the right information to the right people at the right time, there's sharing by email, connecting to the subject matter experts that know about it, discovering it in experiences like Delve, notifying people when something they're interested in has changed, finding it in Enterprise Search and Infopedia, and of course being able to do it anywhere, on any device. Now, those of you who are SharePoint users have probably already built your own knowledge management portals with the amazing toolkit that SharePoint provides. You have content by search and search-driven publishing, which lets you build your own collections. You have taxonomy and navigation providers, which let you organize things conceptually around your business. And master pages, layouts, and web parts let you explain whatever you like. And plus, it's all managed through workflow, versioning, check-in and out, and permissions. In our most recent round of customer discussions, One of the things we learnt is it's great for building portals, but a lot of people found difficulty in actually understanding knowledge management itself, learning about how to do it, and building the right portals. And with that in mind, because they asked us to, we looked at how to build a ready-to-go knowledge management portal. It can save you, by the time we're finished, a lot of time in learning about knowledge management best practice. It can save you the time in building your own knowledge management portals. And it will give your users a uniform experience because you don't delegate building knowledge management portals across your company. There's one to do all of it. But it's going to be a journey, and we're going to explain what that journey will be as we go along. Now, the NextGen Infopedia portal is part of a family of NextGen portals that our customers have asked us to build. One of them is the Office 365 video portal, which is already available, the place to put your videos. There's Delve, where you can find definitive information on people and their documents, and of course there's Infopedia. What they all have in common is they're intelligent, they'll help you along in doing your job. They're social, they encourage interaction. They're mobile, you can use them anywhere, and they're ready to go. You don't have to assemble them from scratch. And they're all built on the key Office 365 capabilities that you know and love. Now, knowledge management has a spectrum of sort of practices. On the one side, there's what we think of as top-down knowledge management. Top-down knowledge management is typically about when you're talking about really high-value, mission-critical information or compliance. So examples might be how to drill an oil well correctly, or how to build an aeroplane, or log legal issues. Those are things that don't just have financial repercussions, but they also often have legal repercussions and even health and safety repercussions. And the way you typically handle those things will be to have a small team that really manages it very carefully. It's not the kind of thing that you want to handle democratically. The way to drill an oil well, you'll have a bunch of subject matter experts that really have to authorize it. On the other end of the spectrum is the notion of bottom-up knowledge management. And it's still mission-critical information, maybe a little less high value. And the company wants to encourage people to share that information out across the company. And typically the way people are doing it now is through wikis, OneNotes, team sites, and the like. Our strategy is actually to go from bottom-up to top-down. And the reason for that is we think that will give you the best possible experience. By starting by building up the ecosystem for sharing and creating information flow, we can get rapid feedback from you and then start building in the more advanced management facilities on top of that later on. And here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover boards as a mean for lightweight collection and sharing, microsites for providing more context around the collection, and then finally we're going to talk about Codename Infopedia, our term for our vision for the personalized knowledge gateway that we plan to build in the end. And we're going to give you some really exciting demos to illustrate all of these things. Let's start with lightweight knowledge management with boards. If I can move on the slide. Information can often get fragmented and scattered across your organization. And boards were designed to let you bring that information together really easily. And the idea is that you can bring it together without actually moving the files. And if you look on the right over here, you can see what a board looks like. Many of you will have seen a view like this in Delve, right? How many people know about Delve? Yeah, great. It's also something you should be familiar with from the web. These card-type representations are great ways of representing references to documents. And the idea is boards are an easy way to collect together fresh content so it can change. You haven't captured it and preserved it in some way. And they're collaborative. Anyone can contribute and mail links. And the first place where we allow add to board is Delve. I'm already using boards quite a bit. Just as an example, a couple of weeks ago we had an off-site, and it was a bunch of people from different teams. And we all came together and had to contribute a PowerPoint deck. And because we were from different teams, the natural place where we stored them was in our OneDrives. But we could actually present together, the collection using boards. And in fact, they're incredibly easy to use. And Chris is going to show us just how easy they are to use.
Great. Thank you, Victor. Before I get started, I'd like you all to imagine that I'm Pavel, and I'm a VP of sales in a home and office furniture company called Contoso. And what I need to do is to bring together some information for an upcoming pitch that I have with my customer, Fabrikam. So I'm going to start in the Office Delve experience, which is a great way of discovering and collecting information across Office 365. Cool. So you can see here, this is my profile, my Office 365 profile, which is now integrated right within the Delve experience. And it's very easy as I scan down my activity to stay up to date on all of the documents and media that I've been working on. For example, you can see this Word document called Fabrikam Talking Points. And I see here, as I scan across the card, on the bottom of the card, you can see the boards that this piece of content has been added to. And it's very easy for me to find the rest of the information about certain subject matter. For instance, if I go ahead and just tap on Fabrikam Notes, I can see the rest of the information that myself and my colleagues on my sales team have pulled together across Office 365. As you scan across the cards, you can see I've got this Word document that's from a SharePoint team site, as well as this great video from the engineering channel in the new Office 365 video portal for my organization, as well as this PowerPoint document from my OneDrive. So we're able to collect together and present beautifully content from many different workloads in Office 365, no matter where it's stored. We're also showing the content by reference so that as these videos, as these documents get updated, that'll be reflected here in the board experience. Now, these boards are open and public for everyone in my organization. So everyone is able to benefit from this information that I've collected together so that they can better understand this Fabrikam customer, as well as contribute their own content. And as we look across the cards, you can see that we've represented both the content as well as we bring the activity to the surface. So I can see a thumbnail from the video portal. I can see the representation of this document or images from within these PowerPoint presentations, as well as I get a sense of the context around the information. So I can see that the two documents to the right are actually being looked at by other people in my organization. And any of these items can be talked about in Yammer, so people can ask questions or give feedback on any of the material. So I'm going to go ahead and, now that I've sort of come up to date on where things are at with Fabrikam, I'd like to pull together some information on a few of the different chair solutions from Contoso for my upcoming pitch with Fabrikam. And a great way of finding that content is just looking for it in the Delve experience. So I look for chair. And I not only see rich cards in the right-hand side of the screen that are relevant pieces of information from across Office 365, but I also see what has already been collected together on subjects relating to chair. So I can see some other people in Contoso have collected together information on the evolution of the chair. But what I'd really like to do is give a focused view of a few documents about chairs. And it's very easy to collect these things together by adding them to a board. So I go ahead and start typing Fabrikam. And you can see Delve is bringing to my attention other boards that are about Fabrikam in my organization. But I'm going to create a new board called Fabrikam Chairs. And as I look across this content, it's very easy for me to continue collecting this information onto the board with one tap. A recently used board is very easy to access. And Fabrikam might also be interested in this IT chair. OK, great. And I could continue collecting together content in that way throughout the Delve experience. To review the content that I've collected together, I simply tap the board name, and I can see the few different chair options for Fabrikam that I've collected together. Looking across the cards as well, I can see other boards that they've been added to, so I can continue to discover great content in this subject area. And there are a few other people who are going on this sales call with Fabrikam, so I'd like to share this information with them. I simply tap Send a Link, and I'm able to share this with, for instance, the rest of the sales folks in my organization, that gives them a link that takes them directly to this beautiful card representation of the information. Now, as I'm wrapping up my prep for my customer call, I know Fabricam is also interested in affordable furniture options. So I go ahead and search for affordable furniture. I tap on that board name, and great, I see other people in my organization have already collected together some information about affordable furniture options at Contoso that I can share with my customer. And I'd really like to stay up to date on what's going on in this subject, so I go ahead and tap follow. That not only makes it really easy to get back to in the Delve experience, but I can also continue to discover great content in this subject matter because it'll come as cards in my home feed. So now I'd like to hand it back to Victor to talk about how we power this experience with the Office Graph and where we can take it in the future.
We thought quite hard about where to implement our boards, and we decided that the Office Graph was perfect. The Office Graph records relationships between people and Office 365 objects. And let me just try and show you a little bit about it. So this is a kind of simplified diagram of the Office Graph. If you look, you can see some dark circles here, or nodes, that represent boards. And there are other things there. There are people, and there's documents. And the lines that connect people and documents together are called edges. And the labels on them say what those edges are about. So, for example, here I have a Word document at the bottom that has been added to the Fabricam board. Well, that's pretty simple, but it shows that simple actions can be recorded inside the Office Graph. And I'm going to show you in a minute why that can be quite powerful. The other thing we can do is actually make inferences and record those in the Office Graph. So at the top here, you can see I am related to a bunch of people down here. Actually, it's just a single person. And that was got by looking at a bunch of actions that I took and deciding that there must be some relationship there. But it's recorded as a simple edge. So why does that make it so good for you? The first thing is, since any kind of document can be included in the graph, it's available throughout Office 365, which means ultimately you will be able to add to a board from anywhere in Office 365. But that's not all. We can also derive some pretty interesting insights for you. Let me give you a few examples. What if I want to know who's contributed to a board? That's kind of a useful thing, right? Because I might want to contact them about the content. Well, I can just look at who's contributed by following the contributed edges between people and boards. Very simple. Is anything happening on boards that I care about? Well, I've contributed to this board, the Fabricam board, and somebody has modified a Word document that has been added to that board, so maybe I should know about that. Is there a board I should know about because people close to me interact with it? Well, this sales research board, I can see that somebody's following it, and I'm related to them, so maybe I want to follow it too. That's the kind of power you can get from the Office Graph. Now, at this point, you're probably saying, are you telling me I have to write graph queries to get any useful insights? And the answer is no. We are going to surface it through really simple experiences for you, and I'm going to give you some examples of how we're thinking about it. So here's a Delve feed of the not-too-distant future. And we don't just have cards on this feed, but actually in the top right corner, I'll make it bigger for you, there is a board that's appearing as a first-class object. And it's appearing there because we know that there's a lot of activity on it, and people you're related to are using it, right? Similarly, if you haven't followed any boards, we can suggest to you boards that you might want to follow because people you know are also finding them useful. Some more examples. Here you can see a card that's been ranked highly in the feed. It was ranked highly because it was added to a board you care about. You can imagine in the future we could also send you email digests of stuff that's interesting happening on boards. But for me, the real power of boards will come when you can add to a board from anywhere. And you know, one of these classic examples in knowledge management is somebody handling a customer escalation. And you have to give them a whole bunch of information from across the company. Mails, documents from the cloud, maybe even documents on-prem, videos of the problem. And that can just be handed to them as a board, cutting across all your silos. And that's the vision that we're heading towards. I'm pleased to say that boards at the moment are rolling out into production for all of you. Within the next few weeks, everybody in Office 365 that has access to Delve should be able to use them. The other thing I'm also pleased to announce is that by the end of the year, when our hybrid story is going to also hit production, you'll also be able to add on-prem content to boards. So, when should you use boards? We've already seen they're great for pulling information together from different places. Another good example is focusing your attention on a subset of the documents that you care about. So, at the beginning, I showed you a team site with a whole bunch of documents on it. Only some of them might have been relevant. And, I seem to have lost. No. Only some of them might have been relevant. You can build a board on the subjects that you most care about that you'd like people to look at, rather than pointing them to your team site. And finally, I think Chris has already shown you an example of reusing and building on existing knowledge. I've certainly found it very useful. Recently, I was building a board of agile approaches, which is something I care about. And as I went to build that board, I discovered a board already existed, and I looked at it, and it was somebody obviously shared the same passion. It meant that I learned a whole bunch of new agile approaches that I didn't know about, and I could also contribute my information to it. But what if I want more control over curation? What if I want to manage exactly who can add content, or order it, annotate it, or explain it, or provide context, highlight it or crack open certain content to reveal more, or even show related content? That's when you need the second type of collection that I mentioned a little earlier, the microsite. So microsites are a way of providing collections with a little more context. And I can give you an example of the kind of thing that inspired our thinking behind microsites. In our team, we work with a user research team that collects information for us. To protect the names of the innocent, I'll just refer to the user researcher I work with as Albert Lin. Albert, his job is to go to our customers and interview them, collect videos of those interviews, other data on spreadsheets, and bring them together. And he then writes reports, typically in Word or presentations in PowerPoint. And finally, he writes a summary. It's like a little article. And what he does is he writes the main conclusions from all of his work, and he refers back to the documents that give you more detail. And what he does is he writes that in Word. He then pastes it into an email and sends it out to people. And what Albert finds is he's not really sure how much people have heard that message. It's quite laborious to do all of that. And he's not really clear on how much is communicated. And that's the kind of thing that the microsite has been designed to help. So the idea of a microsite is those kind of articles that Albert wanted to produce, we want to make really simple for him to produce and to talk about other content. And we want him to be able to collect them together in a single place so that people can discover them. And we know that they're kind of important, definitive information. And the way we do that is you build a microsite, you author articles, and basically you staple them all together. And you can have a front page, like you can see on the right over here, that describes what the microsite's for and shows you some highlights. Albert can also control who can contribute to that microsite and scope his readership if he wants to. Most of the time you don't want to scope your readership. But most importantly, he can understand the impact of his work because it encourages interaction with the people that are going to read it, and that interaction is instrumented. So the heart of a microsite is the article. An article is just a page. It lets you organize information. It lets you explain and showcase your Office 365 assets by embedding them on the page. And it lets you connect both to other information that's relevant through Graph Insights, which I'll explain in a little while, and also to connect with your readership. Now, articles are built on our next generation SharePoint pages. And the minute you look at them, you'll see why we call them next generation pages. They're content first. You can focus on the content, and we will format it on any device. They provide rich text, which is as easy to author as Word or email with our toolbox and hinting system. They're dynamic and beautiful. Anything you write just looks great, and the fact that you're just referring to files, etc., on the page means they stay alive. And those things that you embed on the page, they're not just blue links. They're either those Delve-like rich cards. You can even embed Office Online documents directly. They're also social. You can have conversations about them, you can like them, and you can see view counts. And finally, they're integrated with email. So you will be able to email out an article, and it will remain embedded in that rich view in your email. And you will be able to know who's read it, or at least how many people have read it. And if they click on it, they'll be led back to your microsite to find other related information. Now, microsites are a work in progress, but we'd like to show you where we've got to. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Chris to give us a demo of microsites in action.
Sure, thank you. So if you'll remember before, you can imagine I'm Pavel, I'm a VP of sales, and I know a ton about selling Contoso furniture to the retail sector. So a lot of other people in my sales organization ask me about this frequently. I just wish there was a place where I could capture and showcase this knowledge so that it can be shared with everyone else in my organization. And so there is this retail furniture store's microsite. This is the definitive place for information about selling Contoso furniture to retail stores. And it's very easy with one tap for Pavel, for me to create a new article to showcase the best ways of selling. So I go ahead and just tap New Article. And you'll notice right away, we don't give you a blank canvas. We've actually done a lot of the work for you already. So that banner that you saw there at the top, where it's gray and it has this subtle pattern here, that lets your readers understand where they are, so they understand that they're in the retail furniture sales microsite. And we automatically carry that styling over across all of the articles in the microsite. You'll also notice that we're formatting the information automatically for you. So you don't have to worry about, okay, what font does this have to be? What size does this have to be? You'll notice that the title, subtitle, the body text, etc., is automatically formatted for me. So I can go ahead and start this article, How to Sell Well to Retail Stores. Top tips. And you'll notice as I'm typing the title and subtitle, in the top left-hand portion of the screen, we're automatically saving, without you having to take any action, all of the content that you're capturing here in this article. As you can see here, your article is fully saved, so you don't lose any of the changes that you're making. And I can go ahead and start on my article. So my first tip is to know the product line. It's very important for you to have a good understanding of what Contoso has to offer when you're approaching a retail environment. So if we go ahead and select this text, we automatically bring you the kinds of actions that you would want to take on this text, and they're available right at your fingertips. So formatting options, inserting links, creating lists, even pulling the information out into a block quote are all available right where you're working. So you don't have to go through a wizard or to some ribbon to try to find actions. They're available right where you're working. What I'd like to do is I'd like to create a header out of this text. So I go ahead and click on Add a Header. And you'll notice a couple of things. The first thing that we're doing is we're automatically formatting the text for you so that you don't have to worry about how to bring attention to the headings in your article. The other thing that we're doing as you're authoring your article is we're auto-populating this table of contents at the top of the page, which will give your readers a good introduction to the material that you're creating, as well as to allow them to easily jump around to different sections of the page. So I'll continue my first tip. You've got to know all of the products that are great at Contoso. Perfect. And you'll notice here that the article editing surface is encouraging you to reuse your knowledge. So I'm Pavel. I'm a VP of sales. I frequently work on documents that have to do with highlighting the products that are available at Contoso. And so what the article editing surface is doing for you is it's bringing some of those documents that you've recently interacted with to the surface. I can also, if I'm looking for something specific, pull that from my OneDrive for Business as well as insert a link. In this case, I'll just tap to insert a document from my OneDrive for Business about Contoso's best products. And you'll see, without having to have any kind of specialized knowledge, without having to code anything, we're automatically including a rich Office Online embed of the document, which is touch-friendly. I can go ahead and use my finger and scroll through and start to consume this document. It's also responsive. No matter how large or small a device that I'm using, the article content will automatically resize itself so that it looks beautiful across all of your different screens. As Victor mentioned, we are both able to crack open the content and bring you the actual content of the document here on this Office Online view. We also have this more contextual view of the information where you have an understanding of where it's coming from, what kind of content it is, etc. This Delve-like card that allows you to reference documents as well. What I'd like to do is I'd like to highlight a specific part of this document. So I know that on page 2, I've got these great images of all these different products in Contoso's product line. And I'd love if the reader came to this page and it automatically jumped to this section of the document that I really wanted to highlight. And it's very easy with one tap to do that. I go ahead to the settings, I say 2, and every time that this article is rendered for the readers, they'll automatically see page 2, and I can sort of explain why and how they should use this information. You know, as you can see on page 2, Contoso has some great stuff. Perfect. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start my second tip, which is to have a good understanding of the environment where this furniture is going to be located. And the way that I do that is you'll notice as I'm interacting with the article editing surface, I get these hints of where I can put my content. And when I click that hint, I get the article toolbox, which gives me an understanding of the kinds of content that we can currently include in articles. So you've seen text in documents. You're also able to include directly on the surface images or video from the new Office 365 video portal. So I'll go ahead and add some text, scroll down the page a little to know the environment. Perfect. And then selecting the text and a single tap, that becomes a header and is automatically added to that table of contents control. And it's very easy for me to get started. Know where the furniture is going to be located. Very important for the kind of options that you're presenting to your customers. So I know there's this video that's been highlighted recently in the Office 365 video portal that gives you a good understanding, okay, this is a typical retail environment with shelves and whatnot. And I can just go ahead and grab that video from the Office 365 video portal. If I go to the toolbox and tap on that video option, paste a link, then I see that without me having to do any kind of coding, without me having to do any kind of work, we're automatically pulling the thumbnail for that video down from Azure Media Services directly onto this article surface. And when I'm reading it with a single tap, I can go ahead and view that video across my different screens in the Office 365 video portal. So I'll go ahead and start my last tip, text, about giving the customer options. It's very important to give them lots of different options. You've got customers with different needs. And I really want to get my point across here. So I'd like to illustrate the different options that Contoso has available with a big image of the different kinds of things that we sell at Contoso. So when I'm working with an image on the article surface, not only can I pull it from my OneDrive for Business, but I could also pull it from my device. And this is great if I'm on the go and I see something that I really want to bring to the attention of my sales field on my phone or on my tablet. I can capture it and insert it right on the surface. In this instance, I'll go ahead and select that image from OneDrive for Business. And if I really want to get my point across, I can make this a full bleed image, which also gives your readers a little bit of a break while they're consuming this information. The article is fully saved as a draft, and I've got everything captured here that I wanted. So I can go ahead and publish the article, which makes it available to the audience for this microsite, which is by default everyone in your organization. Now, I'd like you to imagine that I'm now someone else on Pavel's team, and I'm on the go. I'm about to do a pitch to a specific retail store, and I heard that Pavel had put together some great tips, but I don't have my PC in front of me. So I'd like to switch over to my tablet. Perfect. Okay, so you can see, without me having to do any kind of work as Pavel, what you get here, if I go ahead and tap onto that card for how to sell well to retail stores. So this is the article that we had just put together in the last couple of minutes, and you'll notice that I didn't have to do any sort of coding. I didn't have to have any kind of specialized knowledge. The content looks great on this tablet device. I can tap into this video and view it in the Office 365 video portal. All of the images and text are resized appropriately for this device. In this case, we don't have quite enough screen size to show that rich Office Online view, so it's automatically scaling down to that context-rich card view, as well as I have this auto-populated table of contents where, with a single tap, I can jump down into the different parts of the article. And, of course, I can tap to share with other people in the organization. So it looks great without having to do any kind of extra work across all of your different devices. Now, I'm wondering if Pavel has collected together any other information in this microsite. So I go ahead and tap on this icon in the top right, and I'm able to see the different other articles that have been published into this magazine. I can look for something specific if I'd like, information about how to sell in a particular way, as well as I can visit the homepage for this microsite. Now, you'll notice as you're scanning down the homepage for the microsite, we give you a description, we let you know when it was last updated. This gives you an idea of how fresh the content is and what this microsite is for. I am also able to see the contributors, so in this case, Pavel has contributed basically all the information in this microsite. So he's the go-to person to follow up with if I have a question about any of the things that have been captured here. And I get these rich Delve-like cards, an automatically generated set of highlights. These are the recently published articles in the microsite. As well as if I'm Pavel, I start to get that kind of feedback loop that Victor was talking about. Scanning across these cards, I can see that, in particular, people are looking at sell the promotion, buying a book. So they're really interested in how to sell effectively furniture from Contoso in bulk to customers. And that's just a starting point. I'd like to hand back to Victor to talk a little bit more about what powers these microsites, as well as some of the insights that we're going to provide.
It wasn't difficult to decide how we wanted to implement these. We implemented it on top of SharePoint site collections. The reason for that is they provide security, they provide compliance, and in the future, they can also provide us with ECM capability. But we didn't just build them on site collections. We also integrated with the graph. And I just want to show you a couple of ways in which we can help you to author using the graph. Now, one of the areas that people often find very onerous is talking about related documents. Often when you author an article, you're going to want to refer to other related information. And typically, that involves trawling through all of the information that you want to refer people to and maybe tagging it. And that's great, but it can also be a very long job. And these days, documents' life cycles are very, very short. So how can we help you? We can use the graph to see what people are actually looking at. If you look on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see an article. It's the bottom of an article. And at the very bottom, you can see what we call the related documents control. And that's something you'll be able to curate yourselves, but we'll also be able to automatically populate it for you. And the way we're initially doing that is using something like the kind of recommendations you see on shopping sites. So, you often see people that bought this went on to buy this. And in the same way, for this article you can see here, people that looked at this article or read the documents inside the article went on to use these documents. Now, it doesn't just take it from a couple of people. It aggregates across lots of usage. And then it boils it down into a very simple edge in the graph that you can see on the bottom here that says, from this document, you're likely to find that document useful. It's actually computing a conditional probability for those people that are interested. The other place where we can help you as an author as well as a reader is when you add documents onto the page. I think Christopher's already shown you the on-page document control, where you can select documents. If you actually look at it carefully, what you can see is that we suggest a bunch of documents for you straight away. And the way we do that is we look at your behavior before you go to this, and we try and predict what you need. So hopefully you don't need to use that file picker at all in many cases. So we've shown you two types of collections. How do they fit together? There's boards for lightweight collecting, and there's microsites, which give you more context. Well, one of the things we want to make it easy to do is move between the two. So a common scenario, we think, will be you want to take files from a board or a board in its entirety and add it to the page. And here's one way we've thought of doing it. You saw Christopher showing you picking files. We've added something to this file picker, which is a board picker. And you can imagine that the way this will be populated is by looking at the boards that you follow and others that you find useful in the graph automatically, and then giving you a list of them, and you can select either individual files or entire boards to add to the page. Of course, you'd be able to search too. So that's microsites and boards, simple ways of collecting. For the last part of the talk, we're going to cover the vision for Infopedia. So this is not stuff that's going to roll out in the next couple of months, but it's where we're planning on heading, and we'd love to get your feedback, actually, of what you think at the end. So there's two things I'm going to show you now. One is the way we want to help you to organize, and the second is what the reader experience might feel like in the Infopedia portal. And that we're going to show you as a kind of mock-up. So what you can see here is an article. And Christopher's already shown you, if you click on that hamburger-like menu on the top, you can get the table of contents. Now, we've already had some feedback from some early preview customers that they might like a bit more structure to their table of contents. And just to show you what that might look like, it might look like a table of contents with a section, just like you get in a magazine. You'd expect to be able to file your contents under a section. This is the first time when I really need to start talking about what we call a content steward, the person that owns the microsite and needs to organize it in some way for the authors. So I'm talking about this to give you some idea of how easy we'd like things to be for the steward. We would love it that the steward can just walk up to this page and type on this left-hand side and add those sections directly, so they can see exactly what they're changing. But what should the experience feel like for an author now that there are sections? Well, what we'd like is that it's also really easy for an author to pick sections. So you can see at this top of the page here, there's an Add to Section button, and if we click on it, we'd expect the page perhaps to slide down and something come out that helps us to decide where to file. So on the left, we haven't just given you a list of the sections that you might file under. We've tried to make suggestions. So there's sections you've recently used. We could perhaps look at the content from the article and suggest sections that it seems to belong to, or even look at similar articles and say where they've already been filed. So we want to make choosing this kind of thing really easy for you. On the right-hand side, you can also see the consequences of making a choice. When, for example, I click on something like sales, we can see it gives you the context of where it will be filed. So here's other articles that have been filed under that section. So the idea for us is that any kind of filing you do on metadata should be assisted and friction-free. Okay. And when you're done, you'd expect to know how you filed it. Let me now talk about the Infopedia portal. And I'm going to show you a mock-up. I'm going to talk about it as if it exists, just to make myself, to make it a bit more credible. The way I think about going and getting definitive knowledge is a lot like going to an online knowledge shop. You can imagine it's quite a good metaphor, because shops have a lot of the things that you need. They often give you great personalized recommendations that get you where you need to go before you've even got there. Often they'll mail you with what you need. They're often organized so that you can find things really easily. And I imagine the organization in our online knowledge shops departments would be around the major parts of your company. And finally, they have great search that really understands the structure of your documents. And that's the kind of experience I'd like to show you now. So with that in mind, here's a mock-up of the Infopedia of the future. I want you to imagine that you're all Abraham Beardsley and that you work for Contoso. And you're in sales, and you have a sales call tomorrow. And you want three things. You want the definitive brochure for selling to hotels, because that's what you're going to sell. You're going to want best practice in selling to hotels, just to make sure that you're familiar with it. And finally, you want some evidence that the furniture that you're selling is really robust, because you're selling to a hotel. And the reason why I've chosen those three things is it will illustrate recommendations, great browsing, and search. So, how might you go to Infopedia? Like I say, with great recommendations, I'd expect that you might well get a mail telling you that something of interest is there for you. But let's go to the app launcher and go into Infopedia. So you're now on the Infopedia storefront, and you're looking at data for your whole company, and there's personalized recommendations. When your company has actually recommended some things for you, it looks like it's the Olm collection, which is actually what you're looking for. But this is an introduction, and as I look down here, I can see a bunch of personalized recommendations. I can see boards down on the bottom right. Two to the left, I can see a Word document that must have been contained in a board or a microsite. And on either side, I can see articles. And I know these are good articles because they've been authorized by their departments with a special badge. It says sales and marketing here, and there's a manufacturing badge on that one. But actually, I can see over here the article that I was looking for. This is actually the sales brochure for the Olm collection. So I'll save that for later. So that's the kind of power you might get from a graph-driven recommendation experience when you're looking for definitive information. The next thing I'd like to show you is the idea of browsing according to your company structure. So let's say, since I'm in sales, we're going to look at the different departments in the store, so to speak. And here, I can see, amongst other things, sales and marketing. So I'm going to go there. And now I can see a bunch of recommendations from sales and marketing. So I've kind of honed down the recommendations for this subject area. Since I'm going to show you browsing, we'll go to the directory. And this time we can see the list of all of the microsites and boards for that department. What I can see here is, this is interesting. There's a card here that represents an on-prem SharePoint portal. So in our vision, we'd expect that any of the investments you've already made in knowledge management portals, we will be able to handle by linking them into this directory and searching over them. On the left, you can see a microsite, and this looks like the microsite I'm interested in. You can also see that the representation of the microsite has a bunch of highlights of things that people are using a lot, and at the bottom I can see the hotel furniture best practice, so I'm going to click on that, and we can see an article. And this looks like the article I want. I can give feedback to the authors. I can like it. I can ask them questions through comments. I can share it with colleagues. I can even see how popular it is myself to make a decision. And as I scan down, I can see that that table of contents that Christopher mentioned is floating with me. That's nice. There's still those embedded documents. And in our vision, I can also see at the bottom a bunch of metadata. There's things like categories we've classified this with so that we can roll it up better in search. I can also see the list of subject matter experts for this article. That looks great. I'll save that for later. So that's the kind of browse experience we'd like to produce in that portal. Let's finally talk about what that search experience might be like. So I'm going to go up to the top. And this time I said we were going to try and show that it was durable in some way. So since it's probably not part of the sales thing, I'm going to search for it. And let's start typing durability. Of course, I'm going to get search suggestions. This is the kind of regular, you can see in the middle, the kind of regular query suggestions you get in search. But underneath, you can also see it suggesting documents I might want to read because people I'm connected to through the graph found them useful. And at the top, just like in a shopping site, it can suggest that I want to hone my search to a particular department, like manufacturing. Well, since I'm looking for evidence of robustness, that seems like a good idea. And now I can see my results. And search understands the structure of my collections. So it knows about microsites and articles and documents. It even seems to know about the subject matter experts. So I could type in a query and find the experts for that subject. And at the top, I can also see why I was using that kind of metadata. I can now also refine by concepts that make sense to me for my business. And so I was looking for the Olm range. I will narrow down on that. And the very first article now is what I'm looking for. It's a report on durability, so I'll save that for later. And that star action that you can see would also save it in Delve for you so that you could get it there. So that's our vision for Infopedia. Like I said, when we're done, I'd love to get some feedback on that. So let me round off, and then we can take some questions. I think we've got plenty of time. We've said what our strategy is. We're talking about the heart of knowledge management being collecting. We're starting bottom up, but we're going to head towards top down and give you more management capability. We've shown you two types of collections. We've shown you very lightweight collections with boards, and we've shown you more contextual collections with microsites. Our vision for Infopedia also has various promises, if you like. One is for knowledge seekers, that they'll be able to easily shop the definitive knowledge they need in Office 365. For knowledge workers or authors, they should be able to easily curate and showcase collections through boards and microsites. And also, you'll be able to assess and improve your impact through the social features that we showed and simple analytics. And finally, we started to talk about the job of content stewards and how we plan to make it really easy to help you market your knowledge intuitively by, when you set things up like we showed for the two-level table of contents, it should be really simple. And we'd also provide analytics for you to help you know what your impact is over the whole microsite or part of the store. We showed this concept of badges where you can establish trust and authority in your content, and also that you might be an owner of a department, if you like, in your store too. And finally, we want to help you to keep your knowledge fresh by reducing author friction. And there are two ways we plan to do that. One is it's really easy to author microsites and pages. You just refer to content. You don't have to bring it into the site. And we also plan to invest in data mining to help you populate your data automatically. Okay, just before I hand over for questions, I'd like to tell you about some other sessions. Some of them you'll have to watch on video because they've already happened. But if you want to get an overview of our portal strategy, there's a great session by Adam Harmetz and Mark Cashman that you might want to take a look at on video. If you want to know more about Delve and the people portal there, There was a session this morning that you might want to watch on video. After this, there's a great session on collaboration with files in Office 365 by Andy Hayon and Eric Zenz. And tomorrow, you can get more of a drill down onto the Office video portal with Mark Moroz and Ashish. And if you want to get the behind-the-scenes view of all of our next-generation portals, you might want to attend Dan Kogan's and Jeremy Kelly's session. I believe I've got the wrong identifier there, but you can find it in your programs. Thank you. So we'll hand over for questions. Please, can you come to the microphone if you'd like to ask, so that everybody can hear.
So, sorry for my voice. I have laryngitis. So, could I put a sway in the article, as an introduction, a really nice introduction to my microsite?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that. Did you hear that?
Could I embed a sway in the article?
Similar to embedding a
sway.
Could you embed a sway?
Oh, yes. Yes, the plan is that you should be able to embed a sway just like any other document, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you discuss Yammer integration with microsites and boards? So, conversations outside of a document. So, in some of those microsites, right, conversations may be had about just hotel chairs, not specific about a document. So, can you talk about Yammer integration?
Yeah, at the moment, the only Yammer integration we've been thinking about is associating either a Yammer discussion with a page or with the whole microsite. It's an interesting question about whether you'd also want to allow something like having a hashtag and showing other related information.
Instead of separate, right, exactly, tying them together.
Yeah, is that something you think that would be useful?
Yes, very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I have a handful of questions wrapped up in one.
Yeah.
Knowing that Infopedia is really where I want to be, what do I do now? We're getting ready to build a new intranet or portal in the next 6 months to a year. So is there work I can do now to prepare? Do I wait? How do I engineer it?
Well, that's a great question. I think my advice would be at the moment, I would just carry on as you are, because one of the things that we plan to do is let you refer to your existing knowledge management sites as part of that overall plan. So we don't have enough details now to give you any specific advice. Yeah.
Many of my clients use SharePoint sites for very heavily intensive document management with collaboration, so they may have hundreds of documents grouped and sorted and organized.
Yeah.
This is a pretty big paradigm shift, and you mentioned the future in ECM. What's your vision for that type of functionality? I mean, you got people who, from a business perspective, may need to interact with all those documents during the day.
Right.
So
I missed the beginning of your question.
What's your vision for how this is going to work for that heavy document-centric type user?
I should say it's a vision that we're still working on, so I can't give you a perfect answer. We believe we need to integrate ECM into this mechanism. We're working on the details. At the very least, we expect to have things like the equivalent of content by search, that you should be able to roll up your documents onto those pages just like you could before.
Boards are available now in Delve. Can you give us an idea when microsites are coming?
Microsites, not a precise one. As you can see, we're working on it. I would expect it fairly soon, but sorry, I can't give you details.
So I saw that there was lots of documents coming back on the boards. Can you also put like a wiki page on a board as well?
Yes.
We've heavily invested in sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't see your mouth moving.
Most of our knowledge-based material we have right now is being serviced in wiki pages. Is it going to be possible to put those on boards as well?
You will be able to, we're working on being able to put any content type
so you'll be able to do pages
onto boards, ranging from on-prem,
so
OneNote.
That's not something that's going to be out in the next couple of weeks?
No. No,
Okay.
but there's a bunch of stuff that will be there, and we're actively working on it all the time.
So what's going to get released to Office 365 in the next few weeks is going to be mainly just being able to board documents.
For the exact list of content types, let me defer to Chris.
Sure. So Boards is coming out to worldwide, so every Office 365 customer who has access to Delve will be able to use Boards in the next coming weeks. The content types that will be available right now are your documents, so your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF. You are also able to, right now, collect together Office 365 videos. In addition, you'll see throughout this week, one of the use cases that we have for next generation pages in SharePoint is if you're an individual and you'd like to share your expertise in a blogging sort of sense, we have something called a story, so you'll be able to add that to a board. So those are the content types that you can add to boards right now. In coming weeks, you'll see support for other types of documents like OneNotes, like Visios. And we definitely have on the roadmap things like that are very frequently used in SharePoint, and your example of wiki pages is a great example of that. But the vision of boards is any other substantial content that you're consuming in Office 365 will be able to be added to boards.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So question. What is the future, or how do you see content in different languages? Because maybe a best practice in the United States in English, it will be valuable for another country or another organization in Spanish under the same corporate. So in the case of SharePoint, we have the translation service application. What is the vision there? Are we going to be able to translate best practices or a microsite or whatever to another language easily and really share best practices between countries?
So are you looking for automatic translation or something like variations?
Variations. No, I'm talking about translations. Yes.
Translation.
Because variations will create a copy of the actual page in a different. I think that's not.
I guess the answer is we haven't put a lot of effort yet into translation. It's obviously a really important area, and one of the reasons why we're getting things out as quickly as we can is to get feedback from people like you on what's most important.
And from the knowledge management perspective, that will be one of the principal topics that you should include.
Absolutely.
The possibility to reuse knowledge in different languages.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, I just want to pause questions for a second. If you received one of these surveys, my colleague Emma has the survey results bin here on this side, so you can hand in your surveys, please, on this side over here.
Which side are we on now?
So I think we're here.
Yeah,
first of all, just some feedback. I think the articles are very encouraging because the wiki in SharePoint has sucked since day one.
Yep.
And it's been a big impediment. My firm does a lot of work with law firms, and they don't want anything to do with the wiki. They use tools like Confluence, and it hurts our ability to sell into that sector. That's my feedback. My question is, how are articles going to replace the wiki, complement the wiki, and where do you see the wiki going in general?
That's a great question. I think I would say that articles, we have a new page model that we're building on in SharePoint at the moment that, as I say, is the next generation. Articles, I would say, are currently complementing wiki pages. We're not planning on, there's no immediate plans to take them away or anything like that. But we hope that a lot of the new stuff we're introducing will be better for you, if that answers it. So you should see these new pages appearing in more and more places as we go on.
Cool.
Did that answer the question?
It does.
Yeah.
Hiya. I saw in a couple of your demos today and also in the keynote when you're sort of authoring your articles, when you're adding images and stuff, you always have the choice for either by URL or OneDrive, but I didn't seem to see an idea of where you can get it from either a central asset management document library or a team site that you might have access to pull in your images. It always seems to be OneDrive or a local logos, and I just want to know what the reasonings behind this push for OneDrive seemingly.
Correct. No, it's just that it's a work in progress, and we haven't integrated that capability yet.
But there will be plans to do that.
Yeah, it's a very high priority for us.
That's fine. I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I've got a couple of questions. Can we manage who can create boards and microsites, I guess? Or anyone can create them at the moment?
So the question is, you're asking, can you just
who can create boards and microsites?
Right, so you're not talking about adding to them. At the moment, anybody can. If we get enough feedback from IT that they think they want it to be switchable, obviously we'll add the capability. Do you feel it's necessary?
Well, if you got 50,000 people and you got 50,000 people that create 50,000 boards, it's going to be a long navigation on the site.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Well,
I think it's important. There was one aspect of the microsites which we didn't show today, which we're working on, which is the ability for you, we talked to it in the slides, but the ability for you to scope the authorship of a specific microsite. So if there is a microsite which is supposed to be, for instance, the definitive knowledge about how to drill oil wells, and there are only a few specific people in your organization who are subject matter experts and should have the right to contribute content there, you are able, in the product that we're currently working on, to scope that authorship to just those people.
All right. Yeah. Second question, when you added the video, there's no browsing or search to find the video on the video portal. You've got to go to another page to the video portal, copy. Is there any plans to make it easier?
Yeah,
I guess.
It should be just as easy to make a selection of a video from the Office 365 video portal as it was when we showed file selection from your OneDrive for Business. It should have just as easy of a browse experience in the finished product.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, coming from the old SharePoint world, I know that when you have pages, then you need to have sites to store the pages, and also when you like to have page assets, these needs to be stored as well somewhere. So we see that you can pick pictures, for example, from your device and putting it on that article page. I also assume that you can pick documents directly from your drive and put it there.
Correct.
Where will these files be stored?
There's a different answer for depending on what we're talking about. Videos currently only exist in the video portal, for example, so it just refers to them. Our current thinking is you shouldn't copy files, so you should just refer to them where they are. For images, actually, we do something a little different. We do copy it across at the moment and make a copy.
But do I have access afterwards to a library, for example, where
No.
I can find these images?
No, but you can edit them in situ. So you should never need to go behind the scenes to dig around.
Okay.
Everything you need to do should be there on the page or in the settings.
No more libraries?
No more libraries for that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think that's a good thing, by the way?
I'm not sure right now.
Hey, a couple of questions. One is, are you going to backport these to on-prem only and ship it in 2016, or it's going to be online only? And the second part would be, is this going to behave like the Office video portal where you can have only one video portal per tenant? Are you going to have only one Infopedia portal per tenant, or you can have multiple Infopedias?
Let me do the first question first, but I've forgotten what it was.
The first question was, are these new capabilities, for instance, like microsites, what is the relationship to on-premises SharePoint?
Are they going to be shipped on-prem in 2016, or you don't know?
It certainly won't be in 2016 because we haven't even shipped them into production in the cloud yet. So if they were to go on-prem, it will be later. And all I can say at the moment is no decision has been made yet.
But they're cloud first for now.
They're cloud first. And similarly for boards. Boards are currently an intimate part of Delve, and Delve is not shipping on-prem at the moment. There may be a hybrid story, but nothing decided yet. The second question was, will there just be one? And the answer is yes. We're thinking there should just be one, but people would own different departments, if you like, within Infopedia. So that's how we'd like to handle the idea that lots of people have their own knowledge management needs. So you would have a different steward for each department.
Thank you.
Following on from the shopping analogy and being able to have a conversation about what articles and boards you think are useful, are you thinking about instituting like a 5-star rating? You can see the number of people who have 5-star reviews of articles and documents and boards.
We could do. A lot of evidence is or at least in a lot of the companies we've looked at, that people don't tend to do a lot of those ratings. And what we tend to use is just what people do. So that the graph can help you out a lot there to work out what's important just by looking at people's behavior. But if we hear a lot of feedback that people want that, again, we would consider it. Everything I've seen is people don't use it.
One comment, which you guys rock. This is fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second is a question about how much you can structure boards. Like if somebody has a structure where they, let's say a taxonomy or MMS, presumably you could just create those as boards programmatically and use them. Or is there any
So your question is, what's the relationship between taxonomy and boards, I guess, is the question, is it? Or is it
I assume there's none, but just from a user perspective, as you scale, sometimes you don't want the folksonomy problem that anybody can create any kind of board.
Right.
And you have some structure. How do you see using it?
At the moment, the strongest thing I've heard from customers is that they would like the idea of, for example, suggesting board names. The other thing I've heard, that we've both heard actually, from feedback is people would like to possibly protect their boards, so that not everybody can contribute. We're looking at all those things and trying to make a decision at the moment, but we haven't made one yet. Do you have any particular opinions about how you think we ought to do it?
I think engineering for the general mass is good, and then other people can do the specialty stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess programmatically allowing companies like ours to create boards, create structure, do that as within the sort of railed experience would be great.
I see. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience?
Yeah, I just have one. When you talked about this goes back to the idea of security and who's allowed to create and microsites, for instance. So you talked about having data stewards within departments, but that seems to imply then that there is a limitation on who gets to create a microsite.
Correct. Right. So the thinking that we currently have is anybody can create a microsite, but not anybody can create a microsite that appears in a particular department. So you might see it appear in a general, group area or something.
What's the control there? I guess I'm having a hard time seeing anybody can create it. What's to prevent them from tagging their content and saying it's sales, the content?
Permissions. Basically, it would be permissions. You wouldn't be allowed to do it.
You can create the site, but you can't necessarily. Anybody can create one,
but you can't necessarily add it into the sales section or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does that work for you? Or?
Yeah, I think it still makes me very nervous, the idea of having anybody can create a microsite. I mean, that just seems like it's somebody who manages enterprise search. I got all that stuff coming in, and it just is very, I don't know.
Yeah, and you would expect as well in views, like you talk about enterprise search, for example. If you are looking for definitive information, it should be, as Victor showed, in an experience like enterprise search, you would expect to be able to filter out the noise. So you both have a very powerful tool insofar as microsites, which is widely available in your organization. And in experiences like enterprise search, when you want to filter out the noise, you would expect to have an experience like we showed in the slides where you're able to say, no, I want definitive information from the engineering organization.
Right. And indeed, you can create ranking models that prioritize the departmental knowledge over sort of just general group knowledge. And that there's a bunch of things already in place in enterprise search that you can use for that. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's. Right. Right. Yeah. We would want to help you out there definitely by improving the ranking.
Yeah. And you've seen similar approaches in some of our other next generation portals. For instance, if you look at the Office 365 video portal as an example, you've kind of got two different solutions. Anybody can use the portal to upload their video so that they have a go-to place and they get all the goodness of adaptive streaming and mobile apps, et cetera, in the community channel. And then there's a managed space where if sales needs to put the official pitch decks, they have the permission to that particular channel, and we're taking a similar approach. Any other questions? Yes.
Kind of a comment/question. So, with what you're kind of talking about here, and several other things that we've seen Microsoft pitching with like groups and other things like that, it seems everybody's kind of taken either everybody can do everything or nobody can do anything. I'm getting really concerned about sprawl just going crazy over everything. Can you make it so that we can choose if we want to control it? within the IT organization or the KM organization, vice just right off the bat opening it up to everyone.
Yeah. What kind of controls would you like there?
Well, either the choice to make it open or to designate a set of admins that could do.
Okay.
I see.
That's good feedback. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. I think
a
probably the last question we can take.
So a little bit on some of the concepts here that's been questioned, but the ability to merge boards or merge microsites, when you see a lot of duplication, is there a thought around that?
We've certainly, that subject has cropped up. Again, it's kind of early days in microsites at the moment, so we haven't actually started that process. But yeah, I think there will be needs for either merging or some kind of cross-site publishing, if you like, to handle some of those cases.
Yeah, and second question is, have you guys thought about utilizing like workflow and approval process for, microsites who can only have certain number of contributors, but you may have other people that want to try to contribute, but the contributors play the approval?
Yeah, that's what I was calling the top-down stuff, and that certainly we want to get to. I think it's really important.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks. I think that's all the time that we have for questions, so thank you very much, guys, for coming.
Thank you.